So here's a screencast for our first unit. We're continuing on. We're talking about taxonomy, and we're going to get into the diversity of life. Recall, we've been trying to answer the big questions in life, the big questions in biology, and one of them is, how do we classify life? How do we group living things together so that it makes sense to us? Well, that whole system of grouping is called taxonomy. It's how we classify things. It's how we take all of the diversity in life and we put it into this one system of classifying, this one manner of grouping these things so that it makes sense according to their characteristics, what they look like, etc. So we're going to go through taxonomy first. Let's look at a few things. By definition, it's the arrangement of organisms into orderly groups based on their similarities. Now, early on, there were several ways that scientists try to do this, but we've come a long way, obviously. We have DNA technology. We can look at biochemical homologies in DNA and how similar things are that way. We can look at embryological development in the fact that we have gill slits as embryo, that we have tails, etc. We can look at homologous structures. Things that we have evolved from our ancestors. Now, like I said, this has been tried before, not always successfully. Aristotle is considered the first taxonomist. He divided things first into plants and animals. You can see how that would be problematic. He subdivided them according to where they lived, according to their habitat. Did they live on land, in the sea, or in the air? So, according to his system of taxonomy, butterflies and birds would be similarly grouped, which doesn't necessarily make too much sense. Moving on in time, we're talking about 250 years ago as opposed to 2,000 years ago. Linnaeus, okay? Linnaeus is considered the father of taxonomy. We still use his classification system today. Some form of it. We've added a little bit. We've added domain to it. But the levels of taxonomy are as follows, and we're starting with the most broad and moving toward the most specific. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Here they are. Most broad and most specific. All of life falls into one of three domains. We've talked about these domains already. Eukarya, archaea, and bacteria. And then there are the 6 kingdoms. There are numerous phyla and even more classes, orders, families, etc. If you look at the way we use this system to classify humans, well, these are the taxa that we fall into. We are in the domain Eukarya because of our nuclei. We are in the kingdom Animalia because we're multicellular heterotrophs and we're mostly motile. We're in the phylum Chordata. Well, we're chordates because we have a dorsal hollow nerve cord. We have pharyngeal gill slits, a postanal tail. We're mammals because we have hair, mammary glands, etc. So, based on our characteristics, we're put into different classes and orders and families and genus and species. And you can see as you move down the list, we're getting more and more specific as to what puts us in each category. All it takes to be in Eukarya is a nucleus. So we're in Eukarya with crabs and squid and sponges, okay? Insects of all kinds. But once you get down here, as we move down, we're talking about primates, okay? We're getting more specific. We're zeroing in. We're targeting in towards us. Okay, we're talking about chimps. We're talking about bonobos, gorillas, hominids. Now we're moving into human-like organisms. We're talking about Neanderthals. We're talking about Homo erectus, things that approach us as a species, and finally you get down to species. We're simply talking about us, Homo sapiens. Now this Homo sapien, this is our scientific name, and Linnaeus came up with a method of naming called the binomial nomenclature, literally meaning the two-name naming system. Now what's the purpose of that? Well, first of all, it establishes a common language, a common name for organisms, and it eliminates confusion. So instead of knowing something as either a woodchuck or a groundhog, you have a common name, typically in Latin, that crosses all barriers of language, whether you know English or you don't know English. So scientists across the globe can agree that a lion is Panthera leo, okay, even if they don't know lion in English. Species are grouped in, if they're closely related, they're going to be in the same genus. So I've given you examples here. We have all members of the genus Panthera. So these are obviously going to be closely related, but they're not the same species. Panthera leo is a lion. Panthera onca, jaguar. Here's a leopard, Panthera pardus, and Panthera tiger. So they're closely related, obviously, because they're in the same genus. But different species are going to set them apart, and that's the key here. So you'll notice with the binomial nomenclature, we have the genus and the species. The genus is capitalized, the species is lowercase, and it's always going to be written in italics. All right, so we've got this system of naming. We have taxonomy that LINNAEAN has laid out for us. And it's a way to take the diversity of life and unify it in some way. Why is life so diverse? Why are there so many different kinds of living things? Well, I think a paramount issue in this whole thing is the idea that form follows function. And this isn't only important in biology, it's important in all fields of science, in engineering. If you want to know how something functions, you look at it. You look at its form. You take it apart. You analyze what it looks like. So, if our big question is why do living things take on such diversity in form, well, look at how they have to function. Look at where they have to function. They have to function effectively in endless variety of different conditions and habitats. And if they don't do that, they're not going to survive. They're going to go extinct. So if they want to be functional in their environment, they're going to have to adapt. And so if you think about the conditions in all the different parts of the world, all the different habitats, they're very unique, whether it's in a jungle or a deep ocean vent or in the Arctic. All of these are very different, unique niches that these things are fulfilling. All these are different habitats and roles that they're in. So if they're unique, the organisms that are in them are also going to have adapted uniquely, and they're going to be very diverse. It's important to note that. And I stated it here, simply that because conditions in different parts of the world are so unique to one another, so too are the organisms that live in these parts. It's important to note also that organisms have evolved a form that best allows them to function effectively in their environment. It's important to note that they function effectively. Right? They're not just surviving, they're thriving in these environments because of the form that they've taken on. Example, if you look at this, these are our feet of turtles. All right, this one in particular has a form that looks like it allows it to function on land. So if I didn't know anything about turtles, I could look at its feet and say, all right, this form shows, all right, it's going to travel on land, whereas this one shows that it's going to be functional in water because of the webbed feet. So form follows function. In this case, if I didn't know where the turtle lived, look at its form, that could tell me. Another example, how about these bears? I don't know where they live. Perhaps I don't know much about them at all, but I can look at their form. And I can say, well, this bear on the left is white. Where would it make sense for this bear to function, to thrive? Well, it's going to function where it can fit into its environment and sneak up on prey. It's not going to do that in this bear's environment because it's not going to blend in. So this guy probably lives in the Arctic because if it lived down here, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb, and vice versa. This bear, if it was put into this environment, it's not going to function properly. Its form is not going to allow that. This form is going to allow for more functionality where it's going to blend in and be able to sneak up on prey. So think about this idea as an underlying theme for biology. If you don't know about an organism, look at its form. Where do you think that's going to dictate functionality?